the next generation do not want to take leadership roles for the future. Yes, that's true. Only 6% of the Generation Z wants a senior leadership role. That's a real data that we saw in a report from Fortune magazine in April of now 2026, where only 6%, yeah, that's a real number, of the Gen Z are aspiring to have a senior leadership role for their career. So they're not thinking about that for their future. And the reason behind that is actually very connected to the whole narrative that we are seeing in the market right now, connected to all the layoffs and people losing their jobs, and even much more recently, due to the AI technologies, many middle management positions being cutted in many companies. Companies are giving the or using the narrative that AI can automate many kind of the data gathering and preparation of or connection between the top management with the operational teams, and this middle management position, they were being cutted or reduced in many companies. So what the new generation are seeing is basically how they can trust to build a career on management, on leadership, and be prepared for go to a position like this, and they suddenly they lose the jobs and they lose their relevance. Of course, there are many aspects on the whole layoffs, for example, that must be discussed here, because we are seeing a lot on the narratives from the companies about AI technologies, for example, or new technologies, or even new ways of working, reducing middle management positions. And some companies are even using the argument of the self organization or the self management way of working for their teams. The problem is there's a big difference between self organization and self management, for example, and also on 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 the whole job that the middle manager, for example, is expected to do. That is not only about leading a local area or connecting with the top management, but making sure that the things are moving to the right direction, operational, tactical, and strategically moving to the right direction. So, yes, there are many aspects that are correct and right in the middle of those cuts, and many aspects that are open for discussion and for better understanding on the reasons behind all those cuts. But the reality is, leadership or building careers for leadership positions in the future is something very, very relevant still. And if the companies don't think about the succession plan, they are going for sure having problems in the future, because not everyone wants to have a career moving to like management or leadership position. This is obvious, I would say. And over time, that was always the way that people realized, at least in the past, they realize how they are growing their careers. Like moving to management position, moving to leadership positions was a way of being promoted. But now we know that you can grow your career and build the whole career on a more technical aspect, becoming a specialist on what you do, becoming a specialist in the kind of technology that you are so good at. And of course, here there is also a very good point that I need to bring to discussion that we discussed in another video in this channel that is about the Peter principle. Because if someone is super good on doing something technically, for example, a great salesman or saleswoman, and they are promoted to a sales management position only based on that, there's a strong chance they could fail on the position, because management and leadership, they are not the same as the craft of the work. Of course, you need to understand the craft, you need to be super good on that, but there are other aspects on this, like negotiation, making a team work together, making sure that the strategy is being followed, that you are seeing things with a short, medium, and long term vision. So there are many other aspects than just the craft of the work. So that you are expected in a management position. And then, therefore, people must be prepared for that and must aspire that for their careers. Otherwise, there's a big chance that this could fail for the person moving to that position and for the company expecting um, expecting the person to keep performing the same way they were performing in their technical expertise. And this is also connected to a book that I want to recommend you to have a look. That is like what what got you here won't get you there. That is basically the reflection about everything that get you here, doing great and performing great on what you're doing right now. Doesn't mean that will be the same abilities and skills that will make you a great fit for the next role, the next challenge. And on this data, we have also some reports saying that the new generation basically don't trust. First, that is one of the first things. Like they don't trust that the company is preparing them in a good way for leadership positions. And then, of course, as I mentioned, they don't trust that those positions are safe positions to be at in the future. And then, of course, on the preparation aspects, I want to bring some eyes here and reflect about the succession, because we also discussed this in another video in this channel, like how companies are preparing their future leaders to run the company. Because if the company wants to stay relevant for the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years, they need to understand how they are preparing the next generation of leaders, people who will understand the whole company, who will be able to take decisions, will be able to make sure that the business is moving to the right direction and keep the culture, keep the way of doing things, innovating, changing what is needed, what needs to change, but still keeping the soul of the company alive in the leadership style. And that is something that, for example, Apple did recently, that they changed the leadership or the top leadership role, the CEO, and the person is there for 25 years, probably being prepared for this role, probably being prepared on the leadership style, on what is expected. And then this is something that I want to call your attention. If you are a leader, if you are in a decision in a position where you can take decisions around how this strategy around the long-term leadership development is being taken, because you need to think about developing new talents. You need to think about how you're preparing uh, the company and the people in the company for the future. And if you're not thinking about that, maybe you are just thinking about, the next cut, the next reduction in the short term things that you need to achieve, and not being able to reflect about the long term goals that you have for the company. And then for your career, I want to bring you back to what I was just saying about having the right focus on what you want to do, but understanding also what you are good at. Because maybe you don't want to move to a management position because you are super great on your specialty in the things you are great technically, and also you don't want to leave that. You want to keep doing that, being the best one on that thing. And that is great. You don't need to concern then on moving to something that is not connected to your heart, to what you want to do. But if you think you have the right skills, the right mentality and mindset, and you want to take leadership roles, you want to have management responsibilities, think about also everything else that you need to develop that is not connected to the craft of your work, like the main technicality in front of you, but also everything else that will come with a management position. The negotiation aspect, the people development aspect, crucial part of it, the strategic thinking, the understanding of the business, the understanding of how everything operates together and connected. And think if that is something that will make your eyes shine, that will make you think like, okay, this is something that make my heart so connected. I'm so close to what I love to do if I move to those things. So be prepared and don't worry only about the short term movements in the market. Of course, you need to look what is happening. That's why, by the way, we have this podcast. That's why I'm creating so much content to help you to see what is happening around you without losing the long term vision about the things. Because those things like in the market, cutting positions, reducing here and there, changing the way we work, this has happened over the time. Even though it seems to be happening super fast right now, those kind of things happened before. And I'm here to help you reflect on this, to see what is just a noisy, like making things appear worse than they are, and what is actually a movement that is making the companies in the market and the whole world work in a different way.